G'day guys, it's Roscoe here from Third Man Up and the Supercoach Swordplay podcast, and today I'm here to present with you my final team reveal before season 2025 gets underway with Richmond and Carlton on Thursday night for us Supercoaches out there, if we just conveniently disregard the failure of opening round. So obviously there's been a lot of tinkering going on with the preseason games, with opening round, and there's been a lot of ramifications for the Supercoach season as well with Cyclone Alfred. So we'll get to them in a few seconds. But first of all, I just wanted to give a shout out to the other Swordplay boys, Janath, DR, and Spills. You'll be able to see their team reveals as well on the channel this week. We also have an open league for anyone who's willing to join and take us on. The code for that is 503052. If you think you can get the job done over us, well, good luck. Janath and DR have got very big tickets on their sides this year. And I've heard that Spillsy is not so confident, but he's a bit more of a silent achiever. And he just likes to let his players do the talking on the field. So good luck to you all. If you can beat them, hopefully I can beat them too. That'd be really lovely. And of course, if you haven't gotten your copy of our preseason Supercoach season guide, feel free to jump on our website, supercoachswordplay.com, and get a copy of that as well. You can use the code 3MU10 for 10% off. And we know it's a preseason guide, but it still contains plenty of relevant information, and we plan on keeping it up to date throughout the season as well, if there's anything pressing that really comes to our minds. So let's kick it off with my side then. We'll start with the defenders. I'm looking at a bit of a higher price defensive structure. There haven't been too many rookies that have managed to sort of set the world on fire. And there's been a few, which I will discuss, who could be in there, but for whatever reason haven't managed to make it in just yet. But we'll start with the premiums first. And D1 for me is simply Harry Sheezel. Look, he looks to be a star of the competition, and it's clear to me that his scoring potential should only increase based on his strong average last year. His performance against West Coast in the Community Series was exceptional, and I didn't see anything from him to say that he shouldn't be my D1 this year. Very popularly owned, over 60% of the comp have him. If you don't have him, I think you should find a way to get him in, because he should be the D1 come the end of the season. Now, defender number 2 is an interesting one. I've picked Dane Zorko. Now, he wasn't originally in my side, given their bye of round 3. Now, I think, unfortunately, given Cyclone Alfred having to postpone that game and move it to round 3, has opened a bit of an opportunity for the Lions boys and the Cats to get in my side. And Dane Zorko, with that early fixture run, no bye, I think he can be one that will really be able to just solidify himself, get off to a bang. I think they play Richmond and West Coast back-to-back weeks, which should set him up for some lovely scores and really just kick him off nicely for the season. Now, whether he's able to hold that form for the season is yet to be determined. Obviously, he did it for last season. There's been a few people sort of knocking him, saying he's 36, injury prone, but we haven't seen anything yet which suggests that he might go down. But obviously at 596K, he is a bit of an easier pivot to someone like a Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller or a Max Holmes, say something was to go wrong with the pick. So I'm fairly confident in starting him at D2, and even more confident now that they no longer have that bye. Now, D3 for me, Jordan Clark is my upside pick of the defense. I think he's a player that has the potential to really push those Zorkos, Whitfields, and Sheezels for high-level scoring this year. Now, if you missed out last year on Luke Ryan early on, I know I did. He started the season off with an absolute flurry. Ended up with a couple 130s, 140s, even a 196 against the Tigers. I am suspecting that Jordan Clark might be that man for Fremantle this year. He has very simply started off like a house on fire in preseason, and he benefited greatly from them switching up to a sort of fast transition movement rather than chip mark, which really benefits Luke Ryan. Now, I haven't seen a lot of Luke Ryan in people's sides, but I feel like that's because a lot of people are just going for Jordan Clark. So I'll take him. I know DR has him as well. I'll take him at D3, and hopefully his run and dash off halfback can do the rest for me. Now, D4, a very popular pick after their preseason game against Collingwood, especially with a couple boys in the community. Shout out to SDS Supercoach and JG from the Supercoach Hub with this one. Jaden Short. Now, he put on a little show for us. His intent and his drive to win the ball, take some kick-ins, and just be a general distributor for the Tigers was really, really great to see. Now, they've obviously lost Dan Rioli, which means Short has more than his fair share of the ball down there. And his sort of second in coming is Sam Banks, who I'm not exactly sure has shown the potential or the ability yet to be able to score at a high level, which makes me think the Tigers are really going to be relying on Jaden Short. And if he's able to keep up that role that he showed in the preseason, he will be a very valuable pick for us in our sides this year. Whether it's a stepping stone or a season keeper, not yet sure, but there's definitely value. And as DR would say, meat on the bone with Jaden Short to start the season. Similar vein with Matt Roberts, my D5. He put on a show against Hawthorn on Friday night and solidified to us after a strong preseason game why we should have him in our sides. Now, the Swans do still have the early bye, but he's priced in the 400s and dropped a 124 on the weekend, which is really a strong performance for someone at that price. And if he can maintain that, it will be very, very, very short amount of time until he is 500K and above. So for that reason, sharing the kick-ins, sharing the distribution with Blakey, I think he's still a fairly solid pick for my D5, and especially better than a couple of the others around that price range as well. Now, one I just wanted to touch on who's not in there is Harry Perryman. Now, he finished on 93 in yesterday's game against the GWS Giants, and I'm not exactly sure if he did enough to solidify a spot for me just yet. I still think whilst there's a bit to that he's shown, there's also a bit that he could have shown a little bit more of. So, 93s, I'm not sure if that's exactly what I want if Matt Roberts is going to be capable of dropping 110s to 125s on a weekly basis. Now, just to recap the rookies, I've got Zach Reed, who everyone should have in their side. 119K, he should be set to play the season, barring any injury concerned. Job security, very high. His scoring potential, not necessarily so high. I'd probably price him around the 60s and 70s range if I had to pick an average for him. But if we can get a nice spike score out of him, then I think he should be enough to make 150K for us for sure. Now, in a similar vein, James Leake, another one who played in the preseason with GWS and backed that up yesterday, keeping his spot in the side, playing a nice midfield role. Now, with 64s, I think that's a solid enough score at his price to keep him in there, whether it's on field occasionally when they have a nice matchup or whether it's just sitting on the bench. I think I'm pretty comfortable to have him sitting there making money. Now, the last one, Luke Traynor, has just been confirmed this afternoon by Richmond to make his debut. I am a little bit slightly worried about the potential for him being the sub. However, with a key position player, it's always tricky to tell whether clubs will do it. And I feel like Richmond have just got a cavalcade of smalls. They've got their Steely Greens, those types of players who are more likely to be a sub candidate. They also like to use Kane McAuliffe in the sub role a little bit last season. So if he was to be one that would start, I could see him being the sub rather than Luke Traynor. And we know that he scored very well in his limited game time in the preseason. And for that, I'm going to lock him in at D8. So moving on to my midfield, and M1, we've got Lachie Neale. Now, this man was a scoring machine sort of starting from about round 8 or round 10, and he performed very impressively in the preseason again. Similarly to Dane Zorko, no bye, and they have a very, very, very soft run to start the season, the Lions. I think Lachie Neale might be that sort of Bontempelli, Butters, Tom Green kind of pivot that a lot of people have been looking for. Now, my midfield 2 is Caleb Sarong. Originally, probably up until about halftime of the game yesterday, it was Nick Dacos. Now, with Dacos going down with a bit of an injury, getting tagged by Bedford, I think it sort of presents an opportunity to grab him at a later point, after a couple price drops, once he gets through his tricky run of fixtures and his bye as well. And I think it presents an opportunity for Caleb Sarong, who was really strong, better than Brayshaw in the preseason, to just come in, play a good role through to round 13. And if he's doing that, then obviously he's a season keeper for me as well. So we'll take Caleb Sarong as well at M2. Now, my M3 and M4, I've opted for a bit of value. We saw Clayton Oliver's performance in the Community Series, and just wow. I mean, this is a guy who's priced at the mid-400s, and he's dropping 130s in the preseason. If he is back to his best form, we all know what his form is like, and he is a must-own for us in 2025. The assumption is that he's over the issues. He's shown that so far in the preseason. There's been no problems. I think we just have to get him in. Similarly with Adam Chera, he's one that there are a few more question marks around. Obviously, his hamstrings are a bit of an issue for him. Now, he has been off to Doha in the off-season and played through their pre-season. So I'm not going to say definitively that those are past him, but it appears for the moment that I'm probably willing to jump on and risk the selection, a guy who's averaged 108 in the past and has the potential to go even higher in a strong Carlton midfield if they win a lot of games, to take him at M4. Another point with Adam Chera is actually that he has one of the strongest fixture runs, along with the Brisbane Lions, to start the season off. I mean, on Thursday night, they play Richmond. Now, he is a genuine vice-captaincy option, and you'll see our Captain's Corner coming out possibly tomorrow, possibly on Wednesday on Third Man Up on Twitter. There'll be some nice data there for all of our captains and vice-captains. But Adam Chera is a very genuine selection for those who are looking to think outside the box, playing against a weaker Richmond midfield, prime time at the G. Could he be one to start the season off with a bang? Well, I think he can. Now, in terms of the rookies, I've sort of gone for a bit of a higher priced approach. It's a matter of really narrowing down who I wanted to have in the side and who I think I wanted to pass up on. So I think the four options that I was sort of choosing between at the moment: O'Sullivan, O'Driscoll, Sardis, and Lawler. Now, we know that Sam Lawler has been named to make his debut, but coming off the concussion issue, the jaw issues, I'm not exactly 100% sure if I want to start with him. Finn O'Sullivan's performance, Nathan O'Driscoll's performance, Elijah Sardis's performance, and Levi Ashcroft's performances were all strong enough in the preseason to suggest that they should be thereabouts in the 150k range for us. Obviously, there are some doubts with Finn O'Sullivan, whether he's going to play wing or whether he's going to keep a little bit of that halfback role. I don't think too many were expecting to see his 99 against the West Coast Eagles in preseason. But having a look at the highlights and the write-ups that I saw, it seemed to be that he actually did have a very friendly Supercoach role. And I think if that remains to be the same, it could be McKercher from season gone past, Sheasel 2 years before that, where we just get a North rookie, we pick them, they print money, and we farm them out right at the right time. And that's what I'm hoping for with Finn O'Sullivan. On my bench, I've gone for Mitch Nevitt, Lucas Camporeale, who has been confirmed to make his debut for the Blues on Thursday night, and Hugh Boxall. Now, I think Nevitt, whilst the teams haven't come out, is a certainty to be named in that midfield. Chris Scott has come out and said that they want Nevitt to be playing in the midfield with Dangerfield and, interestingly, Tom Stewart. So that could give a little bit of a rise of justification of a selection of Tom Stewart if you were to go down that path. But for me, I'm taking the key point being Mitch Nevitt playing midfield time. I think his job security is high enough and his scoring potential should be fairly decent for us, especially if we're going to sit him on the bench. We don't really have to worry about fielding him. Then I think I'm one of the people that might be pretty happy to have him. Camporeale, very similarly, should be playing on a wing. I know Janath said to me that he's gone ahead of Jackson Binns already, possibly ahead of Zam Doherty to play on a wing as well. So that's fairly promising signs for Camporeale. And if he can hold his spot at 113k, could be one to make some big scores for us, maybe even in that 70-80 range. And that should be enough for him to really start that cash gen flowing. Now, the last one here is Hugh Boxall, one of my boys down at St Kilda. His scoring potential in the preseason has been really, really strong. He scored an 80 off 60% time on ground against the Power in our preseason game. And if he's able to hold his spot without being a sub-risk, I think he could be one of the quickest cash generators of that sort of 113k range of any rookies in Supercoach this year. Now, that's the big query, whether he can actually hold his spot or not, because there are a few people that have to go through there. There's Steele, there's McRae, and then you're looking at, Hunter Clark, Marcus Windhager, Liam Henry coming back from injury. There's a lot of players who are vying for that midfield time. Hugo Garcia as well is another one. Now, can they play all of them and Hugh Boxall in the same side? I don't really know. Now, the good thing is we have a Saturday game, Saturday early afternoon. So we should have the teams by Thursday night, and it should be an easy pivot if Hugh Boxall is not named. Now, moving on to the ruck line, I've gone for a bit of value again. I would love to take Gawn and Cherry, and I did say to DR in my initial team reveal that Gawn and Cherry would be absolute locks. But given the defensive issues that we've had, trying to find value in the forward line, I found it better to spare the 60 and 100K from Gawn and Cherry to Nankervis and Tom De Koning. Now, Nankervis was really strong against Darcy Cameron in the preseason game. I believe he scored around a 130, and Darcy Cameron has since come out and dropped a big score yesterday, albeit against Lockie Keefe for 3 quarters as Kieran Briggs went down injured. But Nankervis went toe-to-toe with Cameron and has a fairly decent run to start the season. Now, the Tigers also have one of the latest buys of any of the teams. I believe it's round 16. So he's one that, should be scoring well into the season, should be probably pretty likely to be sole rucking. And I really love the way he got around the ground in that game against Collingwood. His hunger to follow the ball and win the ball just showed that he is willing to score really, really well in my side this year, hopefully. Now, Tom De Koning, without Mark Pittenay for the first couple of weeks, definitely presents some value. He went huge against GWS as the sole ruck and basically just, came out, went off and solidified his spot in my side for me, especially with the value he presents being in the lower sort of 500K range. I think he could be one that we take on. If Pittenay comes back, it should be an easy pivot to a Gawn or Cherry. Hopefully we get a little bit of value out of them and, can pretty much straight swap them. So that would be really, really lovely if De Koning could do that for the first couple of weeks for my side. In my ruck 3, I've gone for Harry Boyd. Now, he didn't score inspiringly well in our game against Port Adelaide, but I still think he is set to be named to ruck this weekend against the Crows over Rowan Marshall, who's returning from his pelvis injury. So I'm not expecting magic from him, but at 99K, slightly better than a 40 should be good enough every week to just get that cash flowing. And if he can go any better, then he will provide handy cover in case one of our ruckmen does go down if we choose not to trade them. Now, moving on to the forward line, I've gone with F1 Jason Horne-Francis. I think he's a lock. No Butters imports midfield, and he should be running the show with Connor Rosie in there. Move on. Jack McRae, another lock at F2. Playing in St Kilda's midfield, scored really well in the preseason. The only player to crack a ton for the Saints against the Power. And I think that he's someone who we should all be looking to select. If he can get back to his former glory, he's one at 392 who we all need to own. Now, my forward 3 is actually Caleb Daniel. Again, another very popular selection in the Supercoach community. And I think that's purely because he's scoring tons in North Melbourne's backline, taking kick-ins, chipping and marking, getting on the loose for handball receives and distributing the ball really, really well. A really Supercoach-friendly role after his sort of troubles playing as a sub for the Western Bulldogs last year. And I think that that's one that he might even be a season keeper. Even though he's priced very low, you might look at him and say, well, he's going to print a bunch of money. His scoring might be enough just to hold him for the whole season. Now, Hugo Garcia is one priced very similar, another Saints boy in my side, but I feel like he may not be a season keeper. Leading up to our round 13 bye, though, I am hoping that he has cracked close to that 400K range. And playing inside midfield time, 2 promising preseason scores, I think he could actually be the man to do it. Now, he is a tackle machine. He loves a hug. And any player who loves a hug in Supercoach generates easy points. His challenge for this season is to win more of the ball. It's been a criticism of his work at VFL level that he's not willing to win the ball, rather waiting for the opposition to pick it up and make a tackle. But we have seen promising scoring from him so far this season, and I'm hoping that he can be one, not only from a Supercoach perspective, but from a Saints perspective, to really break out this year for us. My forward 5 is Sam Powell-Pepper. Very high job security. I think that he might be a slight sub-risk to start the season coming off an ACL last year, but he showed definitely more than enough against Port Adelaide, especially when you compare him to a Joe Berry, to justify his spot in the side. A mature age leader, I think he's one that can pop out 70s and 80s, and at 180K, I'm willing to take the punt on him more than someone like Tom Lynch, who might be a bit more injury prone and you might rely on him kicking goals. I think Powell-Pepper can get up the ground as a half forward, even get some time in the middle, follow the ball around at stoppages, and provide a Supercoach-friendly role for us in our forward lines. Now, my forward 6 is Sam Davidson. Very, very impressive performance playing on a wing for the Bulldogs. I believe he had 23 disposals at halftime before he finished with 30 or so. And it was a very, very, very solid score of 80. And I think at 113K, he's a must-have, especially if he's going to be dropping 80s. I know he has the unfriendly round 12 buy, but if his price manages to spike all the way up to round 12, it becomes an easy upgrade in round 12 and one less that we have to worry about through the buy period. Now, on my forward bench, I've gone for Isaac Kako and Ben Patton. Now, Kako was very, very strong in their preseason game against Geelong, kicking 4, what should have been 5 if it wasn't kicked off the line for him, with a very nice score of 96, I believe it was. I'm not expecting that every week from him. Obviously, he's a small forward playing as a high half forward, but his sort of ability and electricity in the forward line is something that Essendon are going to be really looking for. I can't see him getting dropped from the side, and I'm not expecting 90s every week, but playing off the bench, 60s, 70s, even a spike score in there to really get his cash flow generated would be really, really nice for us. And finally, I've gone for Ben Patton, not exactly the superstar scorer that anyone would be expecting, but he does have defender forward DPP and scored a very lovely 67 on the weekend to hopefully get his cash flow rolling. Now, he does have the early buy, but I'm not too worried about that. If he can keep his spot in the Swans backline, I think he can be a serviceable enough scorer. Nothing amazing, but certainly one where I think the job security might be just there to keep him in our sides. And finally, possibly some say the most important position of all, the newly added flex. Now, I've jumped on the bandwagon with a very popular selection in the flex for many sites. That is Matt Flynn from the West Coast Eagles. Now, this gives us a bit of flexibility as he is a ruckman, and if there were anything to go wrong with our rucks, as I mentioned with Harry Boyd, he could be one where he really steps up and perhaps fills in a ruck 2 role where we get another premium in the flex. However you want to work it, hopefully he's there. Matt Flynn has actually come out and said as well to back him in on radio last week. He scored a very lovely score of 90-something against North Melbourne. And if he's coming out on the radio and saying, back me in, I think that's enough for me to say, as the number 1 ruck for the West Coast Eagles, he is one who we could be picking for our side. I'm not going to say he's an absolute lock like I would say of some of the other players, but I can definitely see him being there up until their bye and hopefully being an easy pivot to somebody else. So Matt Flynn will be sitting in the flex. Hopefully he can stay fit. Hopefully he can keep that number 1 ruck role from Bailey J. Williams. But all things going well, I'm looking forward to having Matt Flynn in my flex. So overall, I'd say I'm sort of looking for a little bit of value across my side. I was originally very set on guns and rookies, but I don't think we have the talent in our backlines to be able to do that with our rookies. And for a certain extent, I even think our forward line rookies might be somewhat limited in scoring. There's a few with really nice job security, but of those upper echelon scorers for rookies, I'm looking at Powell Pepper, I'm looking at Davidson. I'm not too sure about Kako and Patton, but I feel like they have enough serviceable job security to get me there until we get some handy downgrade options coming in our forward line as well. So that sums up my side. Hopefully you've enjoyed my little team reveal. I'll try my absolute very best not to change it before lockout on Thursday night, and especially not through the rolling lockout throughout the weekend. I'd say the most likely things that could occur for me are probably Hugh Boxall coming out to be replaced by another rookie. Pure if he isn't named. I'm fairly confident that the other rookies in the side should be named. I think Powell Pepper, I think Davidson, Reed, Leake, Trainer, Kako and Patton have all done enough. We've obviously got Trainer and Kemperiali who have been named and confirmed for their debuts as well. Sada should be in there, O'Driscoll should be in there, and O'Sullivan should definitely be in there as well. So I just wanted to wish you all the best of luck with your Supercoach sides. I want you to keep your eyes on the Supercoach Swordplay channel here for DR, Janath, and Spillsy's team reviews as well. Hopefully they think they've developed a better side than me. Hopefully it doesn't go wrong for me as well. I mean, I've hunted the value. There's some picks in there where things could easily go wrong. Jaden Short hasn't averaged over 100 before. Adam Chera, dodgy hamstrings, Who knows how it'll go? It's very unrealistic to expect every player to perform perfectly, but that is really what I'm hoping for. I'd love to get a good jump on the season, and hopefully you can all be there for the ride as I ideally go and win the number 1 prize for Supercoach in 2025. I mean, I'm not sure if that's possible, but I will try my best. So thanks for jumping on for this team reveal. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've taken something valuable out of it as well. And keep your eyes peeled for those team reveals on our channel throughout the rest of the week. And good luck to start the season. Thank you.